What feeling comes up when we ask ourselves those bigger life questions? What am I living for? What's this really all about? What's really important? What's not important? Why am I doing what I'm doing? Who am I? Midlife is the time when we ask ourselves all those questions come up, because it's our soul saying, is this all you're ever going to do with your life? It's almost like another self saying, hey, this is not going to take us very far. And given that the second half of our lives are by far the most important for us, because it's almost like what we've been preparing ourselves for all our lives. It's not like the middle of our lives is the peak and then it's downhill from there and it's diminishing returns. It's continual ascendancy. Our body tends to fade, which forces us to take our focus away from our body. If we were had the best body at 90, that's all we would ever be doing. It's like doing. But after 45, your narrow mind and your broad waist change places, and you sort of you start to slump. But the point being, it's no longer. I mean, those who worship their body, it's fine, but someday it's going to let you down. It's not. It doesn't go on forever. But the spiritual reality is really what the focus is about, because we are not only forming our mind, we're forming our soul and our spirit, and we need to be aware of that. Because if we're not aware of it, nobody else is going to do it. If you don't service your car or have it serviced, you don't have to do it yourself, but you've got to organize it. Your car's going to break down. And it's going to get stuck in the middle of nowhere, and you're going to say, "Well, what happened?" Well, I didn't do it. Own it up. And when you find your life becomes more and more meaningless, ask yourself, "Well, I didn't do it. What should I have done? What didn't I know? Maybe." But don't look for somebody to blame, because that's further disempowering to yourself. Really ask yourself now, what do I need to know now? What don't I know? If you had a puncture now, would your spare wheel be in good condition to replace? Would you know how to do it? But so we need to really be capable, or we need to be aware of what's going on. This is why I'm saying, we've talked a lot about the mind, but it can just become more protectionism. It can become more deviousness in our own mind to say, oh, well, that'll never happen to me, and like this and like this. It's amazing how strong our resistance is. I remember teaching young people about, relationship skills that they would need. And most of the time they're saying, oh, no, that'll never happen to us. No, we both come from divorced families, but, we love each other and this will never happen. I said, but, no. They didn't. They were resistant to the point of saying, well, I was wasting my time. I thought they need these tools, and they do need the tools, but they just didn't want them. And, we could be in the same position. It's hard to think now I'm 50, what will I be like when I'm 80? I can't imagine being that. But I could be as wide awake as I am now if I do the work I need to do. If not, well, then I might not be here when I'm 80. So, and, one's not talking about concrete things, but one needs to be really developing an awareness and an investment. So whichever way the road goes, we will have the most that we need, what we need for it. And our mind tends to be our mind that actually gets narrower. But the question is it getting deeper, or is it getting more superficial? Is it more functional, more capable, or is it getting more solidified? Because our mind does tend to think it knows and so stops knowing. We do tend to shut down in our mind slowly but surely. Our world gets smaller and smaller. But that's simply because we don't look. You walk past something without looking at it, you won't notice it. If you look at it and you're interested, you will see it. A child looks at everything and goes and tastes it and feels it. We walk past 90% of the stuff and we don't see it because we think we know it. And so the mind, focuses on the 10% that we are interested in, but that 10% also decreases because now it's on a learning curve to be diminishment. So again, it's the mind that says, I don't need that, I don't need that. And oh heck, why don't I need anything? It's like, who are we fooling? So it's good to be in community with people of different ages and be interested in their growth, because you've got something to contribute to their growth as much as they've got something to contribute to your growth. Our society is very stratified, and so it puts people of the same ages or cohort together, which is actually the worst it can do. Because then we all sort of age together, we all become irrelevant together, and the young people don't have people to guide them into the real issues of life because we know where to be found. So stratified society doesn't help. I found groups where people of mixed ages, the most powerful, because it's like a 60-year-old woman and a 30-year-old guy, and they're listening to each other. And she says, when I was your age, and he says, wow, and I really appreciate, and it's wonderful having that mixed age group. Yeah. So be aware of it and do something with it. And the issues, we easily, our brain also tends to, it gets triggered by emotion. So if somebody phones, like somebody you were talking about just now, who we don't appreciate, our mind says, oh no, it's her again. And so we almost switch off, or we would like to switch off, or we'd like to avoid the person. So the feeling of discomfort has made the decision for us. And we increasingly allow our brain to get triggered by emotions that are unpleasant, and the unpleasant emotions create thoughts that say, I don't like this. And that is the process of shutting down our reality. So we need to be in relationship with people where we are drawn into their reality or their lives in relationship, and we are refreshed by their issues. So it's like we have lots to give, but if we're not giving it, we lose it. It's not like it's stored away for some other time. We just lose it, and we just become more narrow. And try talking to somebody who's disinterested. Well, they don't have anything to say. They don't have an opinion because they've actually lost an opinion. The world is closed down and they don't want to talk about it. I found that the most sad about people getting older. That I would want sort of a rich response, because they've got so much wisdom and so much maturity, and they're not interested. And I found that quite a lot, and I found it quite distressing. And I would say, aim away from that and realize, don't let comfort and discomfort be your guiding point. Often let discomfort actually be, because in discomfort is where we're growing. Comfort is where we're dying. So if you choose comfort, you're going to get smaller and smaller. Because, today this is comfortable, tomorrow that's also uncomfortable, so you pull away from that, and then that is uncomfortable, you pull away from that. In the end, you're sitting in your own little cocoon by your stove with your microwave and your TV, and you don't want anybody. The mind boggles. No, the mind collapses, not boggles. Wish the mind boggled. So tonight I was just wanting to raise our awareness to the fact that we need to almost step out of our minds and look at our minds and say, how is my mind operating? Those guys that checked that car took the car for an 8-kilometer drive to test the engine and tried it in all conditions. So they said, this engine is in this condition. They knew what they were talking about, and they gave us a good report. A thorough report. You need to be a thorough expert on the way your mind works. Its strengths, its weaknesses, its ways of discerning, its ways of its blind spots. You need to know how your mind works. You are not your mind. You have a mind, and you're responsible for the condition of your mind. Like you have a body, and you're responsible for the condition of your body. And if you're not taking as much trouble with your mind as you are with your body, well, you're failing yourself. In fact, more. Because your mind needs to be stimulated, it needs to be managed, it needs to be kept open, it needs to be kept lucid and inquiring and interested and fed, and all sorts of good stuff needs to happen in your mind. And you are the manager of that. Others can help you, books can help you, but if you're not managing the process, nobody else can do it for you. So your mind is your responsibility. We'll talk more about mind talk and stuff like that, but you really need to come to a point of saying, what do I choose? Do I choose to make my mind something that really works for me, or is it too much trouble? And people usually say, oh no, that's me. It's too late in the day, or it's always been like that, or I can't help it because I was always whatever. So it's almost like we excuse the state of our mind and then come under the negative effect of the mind that we have. And we justify it by saying, oh, I'm too old to try nothing new, or I must be getting old so I can't remember. Or no, do exercise to remember. Our mind is very plastic, very capable. But if we neglect our mind will just go down. And I think a lot of the dysfunction mentally is because we actually haven't got a managerial or aware process. And I haven't even started talking about chemicals in our mind that are affected by emotions. Because again, we have emotional disruptions in our mind, and we go to a therapist or a psychiatrist and they give us medication to change that. But then we really lose touch with what's going on in there. Okay? Our mind doesn't stop working. If there's something that it needs to communicate with us and it's urgent, it will communicate urgently. Don't go and douse the message with medication. Sure, medication is helpful as a bridge when you can't cope with the emotional thing, but usually long before you get to the place where you can't cope, your mind is trying to communicate stuff and we're not wanting to hear it, which is why it has to ramp up the message. And eventually you go to a doctor because you're overwhelmed with anxiety. And your mind says, well, I've been trying to tell you for 2 years that there's something that I'm not happy about, but you don't listen. So we need to be very aware of our mind and what state it's in and what it's doing and what it's not doing and what it's stuck on and what it's avoiding and all those patterns, because we need to manage our mind. We need to be aware enough to sort of say, put my mind on this, think on that, avoid thinking of that because that tends to depress me or take me down. So, manage it well. It's like a child that you're responsible for the formation of, and you're bringing up this child to be a mature and beautiful adult. So it's your job to actually care for this thing called your mind, just like your body, but even more so your mind, because your mind is like the manager of all the elements of ourselves. But you're still outside of your mind saying, and what I was trying to say tonight is we tend to think that our mind is a given. Our mind is not a given. Our mind is totally at our mercy if we intend to actually do something with it, or we at its mercy if we think we can do nothing about it. And it's important that we take that seriously because that's our whole life.